Kia ora, good morning everyone, Rich Wong here, welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a pretty interesting lens. It is the TTArtisan M 28mm f5.6. This lens has a retro style design. It is very compact and it is a lens that wowed me immediately when I took it out from the box. Now before we start, just the usual disclaimer. The sample I used in this review, including the adapter, was sent to me by TTArtisan, but as usual, this is a completely independent review and I will share with you the pros and cons I found about this lens. This TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens is a lens that is designed for Leica M mount. If you use it on a Leica M camera, this is a rangefinder coupled lens. I really wish I haven't sold my Leica M6 a few years ago, as I would love to do some street photography using this lens. But the beauty of M mount lens is you can adapt it to pretty much any mirrorless camera in the market using a simple adapter. So for me, I did all my tests in this review using my Nikon Z6 using a TTArtisan M to Z adapter. The first thing I want to talk about this lens is the lens cap. When I took the lens out of the box, the first thing I did was remove the lens cap from the lens, and I was really impressed when I did that. The metal lens cap not only feels solid, but because the lens cap is made of brass, it just feels very different to the normal metal lens cap. It is quite a bit heavier and it immediately gives me that premium feeling. It also reminds me of some old classic lenses. It is a bit hard for me to show you in this review because if you look at it, it just looks very similar to the normal metal lens cap. But if you have a chance to touch it and hold it, you will immediately feel the difference. It is just really nice. On the inside of the lens cap, there is some fabric material to make the lens cap fit tight and nice onto the lens. However, for the sample that I have, after using it for a few weeks, I noticed that part of the fabric here is starting to rub off a little bit already. So if you bought this lens, keep an eye on the lens cap and check if you have the same wear and tear issue just like my one, and maybe then you need to do some DIY work to replace the fabric material on the inside of the lens. At least that's not a very hard thing to do yourself. Okay, enough talk about the lens cap, and now let's talk about the lens itself. Okay, look at the lens. It is a really compact lens and it has a retro design, and the lens is just absolutely beautiful. It is a very sexy looking lens. This lens is also made of brass and it feels fantastic when you are holding it. The aperture ring is near the front of the lens and it has clicks just like most other TTArtisan lenses, and it is one click per stop. The aperture ring feels very nice, very satisfying to use. Then we have the focus ring behind it. The focus throw is just a little bit over 90 degrees and the focus ring is very well dampened because it is such a compact lens. So there is a little tab here at the bottom. You can just use your index finger or the middle finger to adjust the focus using that little tab. It is quite a common feature for a lot of Leica M mount lenses, but if you haven't shot with a Leica M mount lens before, I can tell you it is really great because you can just feel the position or the angle of the focusing tab and adjust your focus distance. So 4 o'clock is at the minimum focus distance, which is 1 meter. 5 o'clock position is about 1.5 meter. 6 o'clock is 3 meter, and 7 o'clock is infinity. So you can adjust the focus very quickly without even looking at the lens, which is great when you are doing street photography. The focus ring would also lock itself once it reaches the infinity position, and you have to press the little button to unlock it. I'm not too sure if this is really needed, to be honest, but now I have the habit of always pushing the button before I adjust the focus, even if the lens is not locked at the infinity. So I don't mind that too much either. The lens also comes with a beautiful rectangular shaped lens hood that is also made of brass, and all the numbers and letters on the lens are engraved instead of just printed. And I like the font they use on the lens, and also like the fact that they no longer using multiple different fonts on the same lens. However, one nitpicking thing is I do not really like the TTArtisan logo that is engraved on the lens cap. To be honest, I'm not really a big fan of this logo design. I just don't really like the font at all. It looks a bit like a Comic Sans font. Usually I don't mention it too much in my review, but this time because the rest of the lens is just so beautiful, so I really wish they didn't engrave that logo onto the lens cap. Instead, if they use this TTArtisan logo, I think it would make the lens cap and the lens itself look more classy. But let me know if you agree or disagree with me on this topic. But despite that nitpicking, I do really love the build quality and design of the lens. It just feels and looks very nice. I think it would look the best when paired with a retro style body, the Leica M or the Fujifilm cameras or the Nikon Z-FC. But I think it still looks pretty cool with a camera like my Nikon Z6. When you use it with an APS-C camera, then you get approximately 42mm equivalent focal length, which is also very good for everyday or street photography. This TTArtisan lens is very similar to the Leica 28mm f/5.6 Summaron in a lot of ways. The exterior design looks probably 95% the same, but one major difference is this TTArtisan lens costs you only 10% the price of the Leica lens. Now, while it may look like the Leica Summaron lens from the outside, one thing I want to emphasize is it is not a direct copy of the Leica lens. The optics formula and the internal of the lens is quite different from the Leica lens. For example, the TTArtisan has 7 elements in 4 groups compared to Leica, which is 6 elements in 4 groups. The TTArtisan also uses a 6 aperture braid design instead of the 8 braids of the Leica. So anyway, let's have a look at the optical performance of the lens now. Okay, now let's start by looking at the image sharpness, and as usual, look at the center sharpness first. At the maximum aperture f/5.6, the center of this lens is already very sharp. Contrast is good, and I don't see any noticeable chromatic aberration as well. Stopping down the lens, there isn't much difference in terms of center sharpness. And if we look at the corner, at f/5.6, the corner is a bit soft. When we stop down the lens, the corner gets a little bit better, but it never becomes very sharp. I was a bit disappointed at the beginning, but then I remember this is the same with the Leica 28mm Summaron lens. The Leica's corner is also always a bit soft no matter what aperture you choose, and that's a lens that costs 10 times more than the TTArtisan lens, so then I feel it is okay. But anyway, if you want the best corner sharpness, you should shoot at f11, as if you stop down any further, diffraction would take away some of the sharpness. The minimum focus distance of this TTArtisan lens is 1 meter, which is not really close at all. And because the lens has a 28mm focal length, which is quite a wide angle, so even when you're shooting at the minimum focus distance, the magnification ratio is still pretty low. I don't know the exact number, but if you look at this photo, my Lego minifigure is really small in size. This TTArtisan lens probably has the lowest magnification ratio among all the lenses that I have ever reviewed. So this is not a good lens for taking macro or even close-up photos. With this TTArtisan lens, chromatic aberration is reasonably well controlled. I can see a bit of color fringing in a few of my photos, but the amount of color fringing is nothing really bad and it just never become distracting. So it shouldn't be really a problem for most photographers. Vignetting is noticeable at the maximum aperture f/5.6. When stop down the lens, vignetting would only improve very slightly. So even when you're shooting at the minimum aperture, vignetting is still pretty obvious. This is most likely because of the lens compact design. If you are buying this lens for street photography, then you probably won't mind having a bit of vignetting, as a lot of street photographer would be adding some vignetting during post-processing anyway to guide your eyes to the main subject in the center of the photo. For a very compact 28mm lens, I was expecting the lens would have quite a bit of distortion, but that is actually not true. So let's have a look at this brick wall photo and you will see there's really minimal amount of distortion. I'm a bit surprised, but of course that's great to see the really good distortion control from this lens. With this TTArtisan lens, when shooting into a bright light source like the sun or a strong light at night, you would quite often see a bit of lens flare and ghosting, but at the same time, the lens flare doesn't look ugly at all, so I don't really mind when I see those lens flare in my photo or video. The contrast also remains reasonably good even when you are shooting into a bright light source. So overall, I feel the lens flare control is pretty okay, while some people may prefer to have less lens flare, but to me, I'm quite alright with that. If you love Sunstars, unfortunately this TTArtisan lens may not be the best lens for you. Because of the lens 6 aperture braid design, the Sunstars are 6 pawns which look a bit different, and to be honest, I'm not really a big fan. You also really have to stop down the lens to around f11 for the Sunstars to become apparent. In terms of picture quality, there are a few things that I like and don't like about this TTArtisan lens. The center image quality is nice, distortion is very low, chromatic aberration is also quite well controlled, and while there is a bit of lens flare, I don't really mind it as the lens flare and ghosting look pretty nice. However, probably because of the lens very compact design, there is some trade-off in terms of image quality. The corner sharpness is quite average, there is quite a bit of vignetting even when you stop down the lens, and the Sunstars doesn't look too pretty to me. But does it really matter? Well, I can't really answer this question for you. But for me, I would honestly say no. The reason I say that is, I think this lens is really suitable for doing street photography. The really compact size of the lens, 28mm focal length, easy to use focus ring or the focus tab, the small but adjustable aperture, and this just make it pretty much a perfect lens for doing street photography. A bit of vignetting doesn't really matter, and the not so great corner sharpness also doesn't really matter if you are doing street photography. I also really love the build quality of this lens. It is probably the most satisfying and the most fun lens that I have used over the last 3 years easily. Holding this lens, turning the aperture ring and adjusting the focus manually, it's just such a pleasant shooting experience. Doing street photography with this lens is just a lot of fun. I've reviewed almost 10 TTArtisan lenses so far, and this 28mm f5.6 lens is easily my favorite TTArtisan lens. It really reminds me how photography can be really fun with simple camera gear. The process of taking photo could be the most rewarding part of photography. But don't get me wrong, the photo from this TTArtisan lens can also be very nice as well.